students, welcome to the lecture on analysis of production and operations planning. And after this lecture, we'll be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the concept of strategy analysis. Discuss setting of strategic direction. Understand the plan to improve productivity and situation analysis. Define the aggregate planning and characteristics. Differentiate between strategic and tactical planning. Explain aggregate planning in manufacturing and aggregate planning in services. Understand the concept of capacity planning. Explain the difference between long-term and short-term capacity planning. Let's start with the introduction of analysis of production and operations planning. Production operations management is the process which combines and transforms various resources used in the production operations subsystem of the organization into value-added products, services in a controlled manner as per the policies of the organization. Therefore, it is that part of an organization which is concerned with the transformation of a range of inputs into the required product services having the requisite quality level. The set of interrelated management activities which are involved in manufacturing certain products is called as production management. If the same concept is extended to services management, then the corresponding set of management activities is called as operations management. Let us now discuss the concept of strategy analysis. Strategy analysis may be looked upon as the starting point of the production and operations planning. It consists of the advance work that must be done in order to effectively formulate and implement strategies. Many strategies fail because managers may want to formulate and implement strategies without a careful analysis of the overarching goals of the organization and without a thorough analysis of its external and internal environment. Analyzing organization goals and objectives. Organizations must have clearly articulated goals and objectives in order to channel the efforts of individuals throughout the organization toward common ends. Goals and objectives also provide a means of allocating resources effectively. A firm's vision, mission, and strategic objectives form a hierarchy of goals that range from broad statements of intent and basis for competitive advantage to specific, measurable, strategic objectives. Analyzing the external environment. Managers must monitor and scan the environment as well as analyze competitors. Such information is critical in determining the opportunity and threats in the external environment. Assessing the internal environment. A useful framework for analyzing a firm's internal environment helps to identify both strengths and weaknesses that can, in part, determine how well a firm will succeed in an industry. Now we will study the setting of strategic direction. In most cases, innovation occurs after an extensive amount of work dedicated to a particular aspect of the business or market. Due to the amount of resources often required to make an innovation a success, it is vital that we strategically set our focus on achieving specific targets. As part of the planning process, we need to look at where we want business to be in the future. This allows us to work backwards by selecting future targets, developing strategies to achieve those targets, and then communicating the direction of the business is taking to team. Future planning will also help us to set timeframes within which we need to achieve goals and will allow us to budget for future expenses related to the innovation process. Increased globalization and the incorporation of many new information technology, IT, tools have enhanced the need for top management to set a clear strategic vision for a company. As market demands and the ability to communicate globally encourage companies to continue to expand into new geographical and product markets, and as they also enter into long-term buyer-supplier relationships or contract out activities previously conducted internally, companies are spread more thinly. Let's now talk about the plan to improve productivity. 4 programs improve our production systems and processes while maintaining competitive costs. These are: internal business processes. Implement an annual program of reviewing business processes throughout the department. The program's objectives are: business process initiative, improve development plan review process, process action teams, promote internal cooperation and collaboration problem-solving throughout temporary, multidiscipline teams formed to solve a problem or improve production systems and processes. Program and project management. Develop business processes to manage departments' various funding programs and project management to ensure efficient resource utilization and on-time schedule accomplishment. Establish a program review board. Bid process pre-con meeting. Benchmarking program. Learn from best-in-class organizations that perform similar functions and processes. Vigorously evaluate on how a department performs a process and then evaluate and contrast how the organization we are comparing performs the function. Situation analysis is the process of identifying and evaluating all relevant factors connected with a particular situation. This type of approach may take place as a means of uncovering something that is not working right within a project or production process, or as a way of projecting the potential outcome of an action, given the circumstances that prevail at the present time. When used effectively, the process of a situation analysis can minimize financial losses, boost marketing efforts, and generally make it possible to achieve and even exceed the expectations for a project. One common application of situation analysis has to do with the marketing process. Here, the emphasis of the process has to do with looking at core factors that determine the success or failure of a given marketing campaign. In order to maximize the potential of the campaign, marketing professionals will consider the specifics of the intended customer base and evaluate which methods can be used to reach those customers to best effect. The cost of the goods or services sold to consumers is also looked at closely, since the idea is to earn a profit from selling those products. Last, the marketing professional will look closely at the competition and determine what can be done to promote consumers to turn away from competitors and favor the products marketed in the campaign instead. This process is often referred to as the 3 C's and can be applied to just about any type of marketing plan. Situation analysis also works very well when looking at internal procedures within a business. For example, if the cost of production is higher than management believes it should be, examining the situation in detail can yield clues as to what can be done to lower the overall cost. Attempts are made to match the supply and demand for a product or service by determining the appropriate quantities and timing of inputs, transformation, and outputs. An organization can finalize its business plans on the recommendation of demand forecast. Once business plans are ready, an organization can do backward working from the final sales unit to raw materials required. Characteristics of aggregate planning. Considers a planning horizon from about 3 to 18 months with periodic updating. Looks at aggregate product demand stated in common terms. Aggregate planning strategies. Active strategy. Attempts to handle fluctuations in demand by focusing on demand management. Use pricing strategies and/or advertising and promotion. passive strategy, reactive strategy. Attempts to handle fluctuations in demand by focusing on supply and capacity management. Vary workforce size by hiring or layoffs. Factors affecting aggregate planning. Aggregate planning is an operational activity critical to the organization as it looks to balance long-term strategic planning with short-term production success. Following factors are critical before an aggregate planning process can actually start. Completion information is required about available production facility and raw materials. A solid demand forecast covering the medium-range period. Financial planning surrounding the production cost, which includes raw material, labor, inventory planning, etc. Organization policy around labor management, quality management, etc. Aggregate planning as an operational tool. Aggregate planning helps achieve balance between operation goal, financial goal, and overall strategic objective of the organization. It serves as a platform to manage capacity and demand planning. In a scenario where demand is not matching the capacity, an organization can try to balance both by pricing, promotion, order management, and a new demand creation. Importance of aggregate planning. Aggregate planning plays an important part in achieving long-term objectives of the organization. Aggregate planning helps in achieving financial goals by reducing overall variable cost and improving the bottom line. Maximum utilization of the available production facility. Many small business owners and operators do not spend much time planning for their business success. The biggest reason, in my opinion, is that they are not aware how easy it can be. Most owners, when they hear the words strategic planning or tactical planning, get a glazed-eyed look in their faces. Actually, these can be rather simple tasks to manage if understand a few things about them. Instead, most business operators are in a state of confusion about what each of these terms mean. Strategy sets the stage. In real-world business usage, the term strategy actually is the thinking process required to plan a change, course of action, or organization. Strategy defines or outlines the desired goals and why we should go about achieving them. The strategic planning phase involves business thinkers determining why, and in a global sense what, we will achieve in stated goals. Owners or upper management decide what the guided philosophy and values will be, and how people involved in the business's operations should act in attaining their objectives. Strategic planning process. To understand the differences better, here are some notable points to consider with respect to strategic planning. When doing strategic planning, we need to determine, specifically, what outcome we want to achieve and how we will measure the results. In addition, we need to establish a realistic baseline or starting point. Include in our planning a picture of internal and external realities that will impact the plan. This dictates that we do relevant research, competitive, market, etc. We will then need to craft an aggressive action plan to take advantage of opportunities discovered during research. Tactical planning process. In tactical planning, we need to understand and decipher the strategic goals, then identify the courses of action we will need to achieve those strategic objectives. Tactical planning is developed by those who deal with getting the work done day by day. They draw up a tactical plan so they know what to do, when they need to do it, and this will help them deal with the how part of the plan. Did you know? ERP2 was coined in the early 2000s. It describes web-based software that provides employees and partners, such as suppliers and customers, with real-time access to ERP systems. Aggregate planning involves developing, analyzing, and maintaining the operational schedule of an organization. It organizes areas of business that include targeted sales forecasts, production levels, inventory levels, and customer backlogs. When aggregate planning is carried out effectively, the effects of short-sighted daily scheduling are minimized. Capacity and demand are balanced in a way that minimizes costs where aggregate resources may include the total number of workers, hours of equipment and machine time, or tons of raw materials. Techniques. The techniques for aggregate planning include informal trial and error that utilizes simple graphs or tables as well as advanced mathematical techniques. Manufacturing. Aggregate planning in manufacturing involves allocating the correct amount of resources for every manufacturing process so that the time and costs are minimized during idle mode. Manufacturing businesses use either the chase strategy or the level strategy. Services. Since services do not involve stockpiles or inventory, service-focused businesses do not have the luxury of building up their inventories during periods of low demand. The production system design planning considers input requirements, conversion process, and output. After considering the forecast and long-term planning, organizations should undertake capacity planning. Capacity is defined as the ability to achieve, store, or produce. For an organization, capacity would be the ability of a given system to produce output within the specific time period. In operations, management capacity is referred as an amount of the input resources available to produce relative output over a period of time. In general, capacity is referred as maximum production capacity, which can be obtained with a normal working schedule. Strategic capacity planning. A technique used to identify and measure overall capacity of production is referred to as strategic capacity planning. Strategic capacity planning is utilized for capital-intensive resource like plant, machinery, labor, etc. Long-range capacity of an organization is dependent on various other capacities, like design capacity, production capacity, sustainable capacity, and effective capacity. Design capacity is the maximum output possible as intended by equipment manufacturer under ideal working condition. Long-term capacity planning. Over the long term, capacity planning relates primarily to strategic issues involving the firm's major production facilities. In addition, long-term capacity issues are interrelated with location decisions. Technology and transferability of the process to other products is also intertwined with long-term capacity planning. Short-term capacity planning. In the short term, capacity planning concerns issues of scheduling, labor shifts, and balancing resource capacities. The goal of short-term capacity planning is to handle unexpected shifts in demand in an efficient economic manner. The time frame for short-term planning is frequently only a few days, but may run as long as 6 months. Alternatives for making short-term changes in capacity are fairly numerous and can even include the decision to not meet demand at all. The easiest and most commonly used method to increase capacity in the short term is working overtime. Capacity planning techniques. There are 4 procedures for capacity planning. Capacity planning using overall factors, CPOF. Capacity bills. Resource profiles. Capacity requirements planning, CRP. Did you know? EOQ models was developed by Ford W. Harris in 1913, but R.H. Wilson, a consultant who applied it extensively, is given credit for his in-depth analysis. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Situation analysis is the process of identifying and evaluating all relevant factors connected with a particular situation. Aggregate planning helps achieve balance between operation goal, financial goal, and overall strategic objective of the organization. Production capacity is the maximum output possible from equipment under normal working condition or day. The ultimate goal of capacity planning is to meet the current and future level of the requirement at a minimal wastage. The 3 types of capacity planning based on goal are lead capacity planning, lag strategy planning, and match strategy planning.